theyeshiva.net.
So if you could just give a message to your wives or daughters or women you're connected with, relatives, etc., that the shiur for the women on Tuesday is going to be in this room from now on at 9:30 a.m. on Tuesdays. It used to be in the tent later, and it was just a little difficult with the minyanim. Here there's no minyanim, so it's going to be Tuesday, today also, Tuesday 9:30 a.m. For women and girls, everybody is invited. You could share it with your spouses or daughters or etc. And Be'ezer Hashem. It used to be in the morning, but then with Corona, everything changed, and then the minyanim were in all the tents, so it was pushed off later, but it wasn't really beneficial because of the hour, so we're going back to this hour and going to do it here in this room. So today is Hey Av. It's just worthwhile to mention. It's the yahrzeit of the Arizal, and it's the 450th yahrzeit. The Arizal passed away in the year Hey Av, on the day Hey Av, Shin Lamed Bais. Shin Lamed Bais would be 1572. 1572 in Tzfas, of course. And so this Hey Av, Tovshin Pei Beis, is the 450th yahrzeit of the Arizal, who was considered the greatest, or from the greatest Kabbalists in Jewish history, and revolutionized the landscape of Yiddishkeit through Pnimiyus HaTorah, through Nister. And of course, much of Chassidus is based on the teachings of the Arizal, developing it, accessing it, applying it, etc. So today is the Arizal's yahrzeit. Okay, so we are we're holding the fifth class in Heichaltzu, and we're up to Seif Ches, chapter 8, right? Yeah. What page number is it over there? Reish Lamed Aleph in your copies, or in the Svarim. Seif Ches v'hinei kol zeh. So let me just summarize very briefly what we learned yesterday. You could review the shiurim, they're all available online, but just to summarize briefly, there's two types of unity in the world. There's two types of achdus. There's a unity that's more superficial, more external, and that's the unity that doesn't recognize differences. In other words, if somehow we can more or less be the same, so then we're unified. It's a certain type of unity, right? If everybody agrees, if everybody has the same mindset, if everybody is in cahoots. Unfortunately, that can also be because people are in a cult. If you're in a cult, so then of course there's unity. Or a dictatorship, right? Stalin, Yamach Shemai, my parents grew up in communist Russia. So I grew up, I heard a lot about what went on over there. So Stalin, he was a very boring speaker. Terrible, boring. But when he spoke to the Politburo, so when he finished, you had to applaud. If you didn't applaud, you can go to Siberia for 25 years, if you're lucky. But who's going to stop applauding first? If you were the first one to stop applauding, achas dasa, your life was in danger, because it could be an insult, you don't respect them and this. So there's even videos. It's comical and sad. They applaud and they don't stop. Like they don't stop, basically. And Stalin loved it until he sat down and he told everybody to stop. But nobody is gonna, even if you're exhausted, because this clapping is pikuach nefesh mamash. So obviously, that's not achdus. That's just a dictatorship, a cult. Somebody controls many people. Out of fear, there was a Roman emperor. He says, "I would rather that they fear me than they love me." Right? I think Caligula. I would rather they fear me than they love me. We're not talking about that. That's not unity. It's just if you crush everybody and they don't exist, fine. So everybody's unified, because there's tyranny. You strike fear into their hearts. Now I know some of us are familiar with this concept. That's not bichlal called achdus. It's just you eliminate opposition, so there's nobody else. But even in a more subtle way, even in a more refined way, there's a more superficial unity where it's based on the fact that people are more or less the same. The challenge of that is that the moment the differences come out, the unity disintegrates. Like in a marriage, as long as we agree about everything, it's gewaldig. The moment there's a disagreement, the moment there's a rupture, what happens? Can there be reconciliation? Can there be unity within the rupture? In people as well, can we tolerate diverse personalities with different mindsets, different dispositions, different characters, different souls, different opinions? It's not like the diversity in creation is a mistake. It's inherent to the fabric of the Bria. It's inherent. We say every morning, Marabu Masach Hashem. Marabu. The word Rabu comes from the word Rav, Ribui, tremendously diverse. It's all Masach Hashem. And you see it also in Torah. Anybody who learns Mishnayos or Gemara, as we often say, every page is filled with disagreements. It's very hard to find a Perek in Mishnayos that doesn't have machlokas. There's one Perek, Ezel Mekayman, from Zvachim chapter 5. The Bais Yosef says that's where they put it in before Shachris. Because it's one chapter with his Achdus. Ezel Mekayman is Kula Halacha L'Moshe Messina. There's no machlokas in Ezel Mekayman, if you ever noticed. It's a Perek of Mishnayos from Ezel Mekayman to Rabbi Shmuel is a chapter Mishnayos of Zvachim. So the Bais Yosef brings, I think, from the Ra, that it's the one Machlokes chapter without Machlokes. I think there's maybe another one or another two, but they put that in before David. So these Machlokes, and so the question is, what's Achdus? So that's what the Maimon is explaining, that real unity is not one that is afraid of diversity. On the contrary, it includes, it's a unity that includes and encompasses different people, different states. Not only that, in that itself there's two levels. I can tolerate diversity and I can celebrate diversity. That's deeper. You could tolerate it, fine. I could tolerate it. You're you. I tolerate it. I'm not going to get upset. And I don't go crazy. Fine. It's also a nice madrega. But here it's much deeper than that. Here it's, you not only honor it, you respect it, you also celebrate it. In other words, you realize that it's essential to you. It adds. It's not just, okay, Nebuch, I have to deal with a different personality. It would have been better if you would be quiet. It would have been better if you thought just like me. But okay, I'm a civilized person and I grew up in a democracy, so I'm used to a different opinion. It's much deeper than that. The real Achdus is the Achdus that comes from diversity. As he says, all the pratim, all the details, and even the paradoxes, ultimately Messiah Zalaza. They assist each other. It's like in a jigsaw puzzle. If one piece is missing, if two pieces are the same, you're not going to have the puzzle. And if one piece is missing, you're not going to have the puzzle. Again, like notes in a symphony, like limbs in the body, like the 80 trillion cells in the body. Every one has its unique contribution. So the diversity strengthens the unity. It contributes to it. Like in a person. A person is filled with different types of koiches. We all have different parts of our brain, different parts of our personality, different moods, different experiences. So what does it mean to have unity in life, to have harmony in life? One is, I dull or I eliminate any faculty that I'm not appreciative of. But that's sometimes people, that's really the concept of medication, which sometimes could save a life and sometimes it's necessary. But in a deeper place, the idea of unity is to be able to find that all of the conflicting paradoxes in your psyche and your personality all are saying something true. Everyone has a message. And you need to hear all those messages in order to be able to find your true self. Good question. What about if a person has negative thoughts or negative behaviors? So that's what we speak many times about. You have the chitzonius of it and you have the pnimius of it. The chitzonius of it externally, it's just bad. But if you'll go deeper, on a more pnimiustic level, ein had gvulis nemtakas ala b'sharshan, it's also saying something. There's a message there. Like we spoke in the third class, that we develop coping mechanisms in life and we develop different addictions or different cravings or different instincts because our animal consciousness is trying to survive. And it believes that this is survival. So if you really look, it could just be seen as evil, like we call the Yetzer Hara. If you look on a deeper level, what it's really looking for, you'll find that at its core, it's not really bad, it's not really evil. So that's also part of my harmony. That's also part of my unity. V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha, the Mishnah says in Brachas, Perek Tes, b'shnei yitzarecha. What do you mean b'shnei yitzarecha? How can I love Hashem with both my inclinations? Yetzer Tov Meila, Yetzer Hara, what the Yetzer Hara also, I thought it's bad, it's evil. Is the Charaya, that at its core it's not. So a person has to be honest, where I am. It doesn't mean that every single mood and every single instinct I should follow because it's really good. Externally, it may be very looking for something that's not good, that's not healthy, that's counterproductive, even destructive or immoral. You verstehst, Rabbi Isaac? What's the reason for this? Why do we have to say that Achdus is celebrates diversity? He says because Hashem's essence, Atzmos, includes everything. Everything comes from it. So it includes all the paradoxes. So that means in their source, all the paradoxes are one. Because it comes from oneness. Everything comes from what's called Achdus Hapshuta, from oneness. So therefore, the only real Achdus, the real Achdus which is rooted in the ultimate Achdus, is the unity that not only is it not afraid of paradoxes, it encompasses all of them. And all of them are part of a truth. The more I distance myself from the source, the more a person is distanced from the ultimate source, from the ultimate Achdus, the more I get stuck in a particular tzir, in a particular form, and this becomes my exclusive identity, and I can't deal with paradox. I can't deal with something outside of that. In other words, in simple words, the closer one is to Hashem, what does it mean closer to Hashem? The more one is aligned with the divine reality inside of them and inside the world, the more there's echad. Hashem echad, the more there's achdus. In the source, everything is there and everything is one. When I'm distant from it, meaning when I'm living in a life where that's concealed, that's what we call klippa. There's a husk, there's a shell. So the less there is unity. And the more I become egotistical. What's when I become egotistical? I put my claws into a particular space, and that's it. And now I have a very serious problem dealing with the paradoxes inside of me, and certainly with the paradoxes outside of me. So when I become intolerant, the intolerance is basically representing an idea. It's representing the truth that I'm not connected with the source. I'm distant. I'm distant from my own source, from my own core. And that's why he says it's true in the whole creation. In all of creation, because everything really comes from oneness, so therefore even the way it's manifested in details, there's also still oneness. There's always achdus. The Sefer Yetzirah says he took fire out of water and water out of fire. Water and fire are the opposites. That's the symbol of two opposites. Fire and water don't coexist. But as he says, and it's a pella that he says this in physics, Pashat, in science, that if you go to a deeper place, you'll see there's water and there's fire and water. Like we said yesterday, fire is made up of electrons, and water is also made up of electrons. Electricity, electrons are fire. It's just a different formula that allows it to be fire and allows it to be water. And from hydrogen, you make fire, the hydrogen bombs. So at the surface, fire and water are paradoxical. But because ultimately everything comes from Hashem, and Hashem is one, so all the paradoxes are one, so therefore there's nothing in the world that doesn't contain everything else. The question is if it's revealed or it's concealed. Because the imprint of the Creator is manifested, like the imprint, the chaysam shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu emes, Emes is Aleph, Mem, Tav, the beginning, the middle, and the end. It says in Yerushalmi. So the imprint of Hashem is in the Bria. The Koyach HaPoyel is Benifel. So therefore, even though we live in a world of diversity, I am I and you are you, fire is fire and water is water, but on a deeper level in the water, from water you can get fire, from fire you can get water. The formulas are created in a way that everything has its finite form. On a deeper level, everything is interconnected. So therefore, when a person goes to that deeper space inside of themselves, so then, not only do paradoxes not undermine them or scare them, on the contrary, I celebrate it because I realize that part of me is the paradox. I am part of you and you are part of me. And if I detach myself from you, I'm detaching myself from me, from my true me, because my true me is Achdus Apshuta, Ein Sof. Instead, I created a substitute for the true me, and that's what the Gemara says in Tainis. You should be soft as a reed and not as harsh as a cedar. You would think harsh as a cedar, you're a stronger person. He says you're a weaker person. Because I'm a weaker person, therefore I have to become stubborn. Because if I'm not going to be stubborn, what's going to happen? You're going to destroy me. Maybe you're stronger than me. But if I'm really strong, then I don't have to be stubborn. Because I'm broader, I'm greater, I'm larger. Why am I larger? Because I'm rooted in that which is ultimately Ein Sof. It's clear. Also is clear. You get it, yeah? The more stubborn, the more weak. A lawyer once told me when he was training, so his professor, whoever told him, sounds like this. When you're in the court, he said, if the law is on your side, yell, scream the law. If emotions are on your side, not the law, then scream emotions. If nothing is on your side, he says, just yell. Just yell. It says in Kehelas, Divrei Chachamim, Benachas Nishmayim. Why? Why? It's not stam, a nice thing. It's Haba Hatalia. If the words are real, was schreist du? The yelling is making up for something, right? A hollering. I got nothing to say, so all I can do is scream. So it sounds like I have something to say. If the guy is screaming, he probably believes in it, right? Little do you know. Huh? Your best defense is offense. There's real substance. If I really exist, I don't have to be stubborn. I don't have to protect it so much. What you have to protect so much is because it's extremely vulnerable. Right? Very egotistical people are extremely vulnerable people in the sense that if there's no real muhus, so it could disintegrate. So how can I allow for another opinion? So the question I have to ask myself is, why did I become so stubborn? Why am I so confrontational? This is the idea, by the way, right before davening, we speak about Rabbi Shmuel, the 13 methods of interpreting Torah that Moshe gave the Jewish people. The last one is, you have in Torah 2 psukim, they'll contradict each other, and it's a real contradiction. And then you'll have the 3rd pasuk, and it'll create reconciliation. So the question is, why does the Torah have to do it that way? What do you have to give me and then bring me a kosav ashlishi, bring in a shatchin to make peace, to be an arbitrator? Don't make a contradiction. You won't have to have a peacemaker. So you say a joke. One Rav called another Rav, and he says, "Lame machen achdus." Let's make unity. He said, "An kegen vemen," against whom? Don't make me a machloikus, and don't make me unity. Machmenish ke machloikus, machmenish ke shalom. So, we have to make a contradiction. And no, you're going to save us. You don't need a 3rd if you didn't have a machlokes. The pshat is, of course, it's a very profound idea. You need a shnei ksuvim HaKishim Zezah. Hashem is not defined by orange or red. The shnei ksuvim HaKishim Zezah each bring out a truth. It brings out the paradoxes that are all part of oneness, because Atzmos, Hashem's essence, is not defined by a particular color, particular shape, or particular flavor. On the contrary, the paradoxes represent the infinity, which includes different extremes from one extreme to another extreme, and that's why you need this pasuk that radically goes to this side, and this pasuk radically goes to another side, and each one brings out a truth. Not the only truth, but a truth. And introduces that transcendent component. And that's the idea. Taka in a marriage. But you need the kasav hashlishi. You always need the kasav hashlishi. Like the Gemara says in Saita, right? Ish v'isha zachu, shchina shruya b'neihem. Shchina is the pasuk hashlishi. Shchina is the third pasuk in a marriage. The Buri Zoya Zechron Levracha, when he started to become a Baal Tshuva, so he was a very interesting person. So he once went back to his friends in television. You know, he was one of the stars of Israeli theater and television. He was a very colorful, charming personality. So they asked him, they said, give us a last joke before you run away. Give us habdicha achrona. Tell us the last joke. He was an entertainer. He was a brilliant entertainer. So he told them a joke, and he said that there was once in England or in Israel, he said, there were two yeshiva bachrim on a bicycle, and the policeman didn't like religious people, so he decided he wants to give them a ticket. So if you follow somebody for a half an hour in a car or a bicycle, you can always find something illegal, right? Unless you're mamish a medactic. But most people, if I follow you a half an hour, well, just find something. So the policeman decided he's following them, and he follows them a half an hour, every stop sign, every red light, every yellow light. They did everything according to the law. So he plots, and he goes over to them, he says, I'm following you a half an hour, waiting for you to make a mistake. How is it that you're not making a mistake? It's crazy. They said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Naseya Itanu Ala Ofnayim. Hashem is with us on the bike. He says, oh, you have 3 on the bike? Ticket. You get a ticket. That was Uri Zoya's last joke, yeah? But there's a certain profound message over there. So HaKasav Ashlishi is the Achriya Ben. If you don't have the Shneiksim HaKishim Zeh, that's not Achdus. Fine, you have one posik. That's not Achdus. That's a very it's nice. We're not being Mavatal that you have one. But the point is, that's why Matan Torah was the 3rd month. Right? It says in Gemara in Shabbos, Peches. Yeah? Amalei Ahu Glila, the man from Galut told Rabbi Yosef, yeah? Orient Lisai, you know the Gemara. He speaks that all in Yonim of Torah connected to 3. Orient Lisai, La'amet Lisai, B'yoymet Lisai, B'yarchet Lisai, Aidet Lisai. Everything is connected to 3. The 3rd month, and Torah Nevi'im and Ksuvim, and Kayanim Levi'im and Yisraelim, and it was given after 3 days. Everything, and Ibnissim Gaon over there goes through another bunch of things of 3. And I got a whole sugi in Gemara. What's 3? And what if it would be 6 and 7 and 4 and 2 and 1? 1 is so bad. Hashem Echad. But this is the Nekuda. This is the Nekuda. If you have 1, you have 1. It's nice. It's geschmack. But it's the 3. If you have 2, it's duality. There's you and me. The Kasav Shlishi, V'yachriya Beinayim, that's the real Nekuda of Achdus. The real Nekuda of Achdus is, it's not afraid of Heichaltzu, of division. On the contrary. Stoifus. Ah? Yeah. And and that was the example also in learning. You have a person who learns superficially. If you learn superficially, you're not going to have contradictions. If you go a little deeper, you're going to be filled with contradictions. That's why it's hard for people. Nothing makes sense. If you go superficial, okay, you didn't really deal with it. That's like superficial actos. It looks good. The main thing is it looks good for the pictures, for the photographer. Some people learn like that also. It's for the photographer. For my own photographer. If you take a go deeper, you go more down to a granular level, it's going to be filled with contradictions. And it has to be that way. Because he says if it's a real seichel, if it's a real muskel, there's opposite ideas. Because truth is not one-dimensional. Atzmus is koilel everything. So the more thorough you get into an idea, the more you're going to discover contradictions, differences, and paradoxes. And then when you go to a deeper level, there's a real unity, that each nekuda is part of the truth. And that's what real Heichaltzu means. Real Heichaltzu means you identify the unique quality and contribution of each one, and how ultimately they each contribute to each other to create one holistic sense of unity. That was the main point. So now we go weiter. All this is to explain what was the clip of Midian that Moshe said, Nekaim nikmas Hashem b'Midian, that Midian is the menaget Hashem, echad. Midian comes from the word strife. So he says in Ches, V'hinei kol zehu b'sitra d'kedusha. All this is true. Big qualification. When you're living in the space, sitra means the side, it means the space, the energy, the makam. Sitra literally means tzad in Aramaic. Tzad is sitra. Sitra de Kedusha versus sitra achera. So it doesn't mean side here, two sides, like color war. You're on the right side, you're on the left side. Sitra means you're in the space, you're in the mental space, in the zone, right? You're zoned in. They used to have for the phones, it's called a dead space, right? It doesn't, the place where it doesn't connect. What is it called? Dead spot, yeah? So there's a sitra de Kedusha means you're in a space of Kedusha. Sheyesh sham b'chinas habitl. What's pshat Kedusha? What's nirgish over there is the inyan of bitl. V'hu sibas ha'isachdus v'hiskalulus. And then that is the reason there's going to be unity and hiskalulus. Yaakov says yeshli koil, not yeshli rav. Hiskalulus from the word klal, integration. And again, integration doesn't mean there's no diversity. On the contrary, from the diversity there's integration. It's true in yourself, it's true in other people. It's true in relationships, it's true in learning. It's true in science and physics. In real Kedusha, Eish and Mayim are not mortal enemies. Nothing is a mortal enemy. Now we all have fire and water inside of ourselves, Emes. You have parts of you that have fire, you have parts of you with water. If you can't make peace between the fire and water inside of yourself, how could you make peace between fire and water in your family or in your community? It starts in yourself.
What's fire and water?
What do you say? Are you fire or you're water?
Fire could be either anger or stubbornness.
Right, very good. Water is calm. Water is more calm, unless there's a tsunami. Water is less, Fire also doesn't like borders. Fire and water, on the contrary, water you could contain. Fire, if fire just has a space, it's going to spread. Right? It's one of the Arba Avos Nezikin. Hasher, V'abur, V'amav, V'hever. So hever can be very damaging, but it can also be very beautiful. But fire generally is associated with passion, with tremendous passion. Right? Ava ka'esh, k'yish be'yesh. It says in Sha'achidim, Rishofer, yish ve'yesh, shal heves yutke. Fire. And then there's water. Ava kamayim. So fire and water are manifested in different ways. But the peace I have to be able to make within myself, the harmony. One of the greatest challenges in people's lives, we have so much anxiety and stresses, it's hard for me to make peace with everything inside of me. So we start blaming certain parts in ourselves and judging parts in ourselves. So we have to repress it or amputate it or get angry, and then we're getting angry that we're getting angry. So we're getting angry that we got angry that we got angry. And it sometimes becomes a vicious cycle, like the brain doesn't stop. But in the space of Atzmus, in the space of Bittul, what's Pshat Bittul? Bittul is two things. Bittul means, first of all, that I'm aligned with Ein Sof. Bittul means you're a channel for infinity, you're a channel for Hashem. Like we always say, what's Bittul? Bittul means self-nullification to what? It's like when you nullify the meat, the milk, and the meat, so now the meat is part of the milk. The Rosh and Chulin, Isur Nefach Li is Kamay Hete. So when you say you're bottled to Hashem, what does it mean? You're part of Hashem. So if you're part of Ein Sof, so you're a conduit for infinity, you're a channel for Ein Sof, So then the person lives in a space of deep inner harmony. Now, again, I'm going to say this again. I always say this. You'll forgive me, because I just see different people's facial expressions. And that is, if you're hearing this with judgment, you're hearing this through the tools of trauma, so you're not hearing what we're saying. In other words, if what you're hearing is, why can't I be like this? Why can't I be? Right? It's already not that. You understand what I'm saying? You have to be able to accept also the fact that you're not like that. That you also have to accept. Verstehst? That's also the paradox. You have to be able to accept that. There's a reason for it. Yeah, it's all about kindness. That's what achdus means. Achdus means you don't judge any part of you. Even the part that completely doesn't know anything I'm talking about. And it's like, this guy's living in a different planet. I'm not living in a different planet. I struggle with what you struggle. But we have to accept that too. That's also part of Atzmos. And you'll see there'll be much more serenity when you can really accept it. Embrace it. It's part of my journey. There's a message there. There's something going on. Now, sometimes I'm not in a place of bittul. I'm not a conduit for Ein Sof. I'm very scared. I'm very insecure. Because that's the second nekudah of bittul. The second nekudah of bittul is that you're not living from a place of coping. You're living from a place of expansiveness. It says in Avos de Reb Nosson, Asara nikru Chaim. 10 things are really called alive. What does it mean? I could be alive and I could be coping. Hashem is not coping. Chai la'ad v'kayim l'netzach. Elikus is really alive. So bittul means you're truly alive. You don't have to cope. You're not surviving. You're alive. So if you're not coping, you could be fully alive, then you're expansive. But when I'm in a place of survival, I'm in a place of coping. In other words, my survival instincts are what's governing my life. So I become very confrontational. I get very scared, like we spoke in the third class, right? Sometimes, if you're having a marriage and so the couple disagrees and one of them goes crazy. Why is he going crazy? Even if you don't explode, but you implode. Why do you implode? There's something threatening you. Why am I so threatened? Why am I so threatened? You have to ask yourself, why am I so threatened? The answer, al pi chassidus, is because I'm not in a place of bittul. I'm just not. I'm very threatened. I'm in a coping place. And I'm very vulnerable. I'm extremely weak. So I have to be kosher ka'eres. When you're in a place of, you have real inner simcha, in other words, you're connected to the source, then I'm not coping. I'm not surviving. So I don't have to become confrontational. I'm just not in that space. Yeah. It makes sense. You understand what I'm saying? Huh?
You have like a case like the great fighter who likes to fight.
Excellent question. So the Gemara in Sanhedrin says that when Doeg introduced David HaMelech to Shaul said, who's that young man? Right? So he introduced him as Edoimi. And the Gemara says he was saying he's another Esav. Esav was a redhead, and he's a redhead. And they're both dangerous people. The Gemara says, no. Zehoirig midas Sanhedrin. V'zehoirig midas atzma. Esav was impulsive. He wanted to kill, he killed. David was a warrior, but he was an Eved Hashem. So power is a very powerful quality. But David's power ultimately was a much deeper power because it came with tremendous humility. It didn't come to cover up his weaknesses. Sometimes the greatest bullies are the weakest people. In Hebrew, the word for bully is alam, like you have in Gemara. Kol the alam gvar, right? An alam is a mighty bully. Don't start up with them. The same letters of the word alam is the word elaim. Elaim is mute, somebody who can't talk. Very often the bully is the person who is not allowed to talk. He's an elaim, he's mute. So how is he going to get attention? How is he going to get validation in class? He has to become Mr. Alam, because the poor kid didn't have a place to talk. This is not chas v'shalom to justify bullying and to allow the victim to suffer. Bullying is a very serious thing. But it's understanding what looks like, this person who spends 6 hours a day in the gym, right? The question I would say, do you go to the gym because you love your body, or because you go to the gym because you hate your body? You understand? Two people who go to the gym, they're both working out. One person respects himself, the other person hates himself. It looks the same, but it's not the same. One person is unfortunately is a terrible, terrible self-image. So I have to undo that. How do I undo that? So the more I can impress, the more I can overpower, the more I can undo it. But inside, I'm empty. Why? Because I'm in my own feeling, I don't realize how good I am, how holy I am, how divine I am. You're chelik elikamima. You don't have to. Your self-image is not bad. But if it is in my own perception, I'm going to create substitutes that are fake. And those substitutes will look like arrogance, confrontation, harshness, toughness, stubbornness, anger, all these things. It's really covering up for a deep pain of inadequacy that exists. And that's what Yeshus looks like. Now we have that. I have that. But if I can identify, right, if somebody disagrees with you, right, in the house, your child says something and you want to break a window and throw him out. Li'olam vad, right? If you can identify and say, you know what, I'm in a weak place now. I'm not in a place of bittul. I'm not in a place of yeshus. So be quiet for 60 minutes. Just be quiet. You're already in a good place. You identified what's happening, right? And you even have compassion for it. You can even maybe understand why it's happening. And you understand now is not the time to talk. Somebody sent me, our Gabbai here, Rabbi Ephraim, sent me yesterday a line. It was pretty interesting. He wrote to me, a wise man once told his wife nothing because he was a wise man. Right? So the Baal Shem Tov said, when you're angry, don't speak for 61 minutes. Why not? Why not? Because we know people, during their anger, they got divorced, they sold their house, and they moved to another continent. All in the same hour of anger. So fine, you're in an angry place. We get it. You're a mensch. But don't make your decisions of life based on that, because I'm in a very weak place. I'm in my shell. I'm in my egg. I didn't see the sun yet. Let the egg crack, you'll see the sun, and then you'll make better decisions. Maybe you shouldn't get divorced. Maybe you shouldn't move to another continent. Maybe you shouldn't sell your house and your business all in the same 60 minutes.
61.
That's a good question. I think 61 means, yeah. Huh?
Maybe the subject will be changed to the 61.
Yeah, and they say, why 61? I think, the Gemara says in Chagigim, Daf Tesvav, Meya Pamim ve'echad. You have to learn Meya Pamim ve'echad. Avodah. Kuf Aleph. Okay. Little more, even more than bittul, Zaksta. Shishim, batal b'shishim.
Full 60 has to pass.
Full. Shishim ve'echad. Ben shloishes rishon v'yoyim echad. Miktzas ayom kekula. Maybe miktzas of the minute is kekula. Ich weiß nicht how it works. But 60 minutes and one, okay, if you waited 60, you can wait one more minute. It's probably good. Now, usually anger is a secondary emotion. It's covering over a sense of pain, a sense of loneliness, right? You'll have a lot of times people get angry at each other. What's the real issue? The real issue, why are you getting me so angry? You're getting me so angry, really, I'm in pain, I'm lonely. I want to be connected to you. But that's very vulnerable. It's very hard for me to say I'm in pain, I'm lonely. So what do I say? I say, to myself, you're a Rasha Merusha, I don't need you, I never needed you. It was a mistake that I ever met you, it was a mistake that I said Shalom Aleichem to you. Get out of my life, I don't want to see you again. So now, in my mind, I made myself feel better without acknowledging that I'm in pain. But how true is it? Exactly, you became the Rasha Merusha. It's not if the person is right or wrong. We're not getting into that. It's where I am, where my status. Sitra Achira means you're in another zone. The zone, the element, the mental space of fragmentation, of separation. Why is it a place of separation? because it's the reality in which Achdus Hashem, the oneness of Hashem, is not felt, is not experienced viscerally. So the oneness in life is not experienced. That's the definition of Sitra Achra versus Kedusha. So it's characterized by a yesh, by a separate reality outside of the reality of Einoid Mulvada. In other words, the yeshus of Kedusha is what? That it has no yeshus. What's yeshus means something, existence, right? Yesh. So what's the yeshus of Kedusha? What's the mitzias of Kedusha? The mitzias of Kedusha is that I'm a conduit for the Achdus Hashem. I'm an kavayachal, an extension of Hashem. Shluchai shaladam k'moisa. That's Kedusha. Being in the mode of Kedusha means I'm an ambassador of Hashem. That's Kedusha. I'm an ambassador of the Rebbeinu Shloim in this world. All of me, my mind, my heart, my faculties, my machshava, dibra, maisa. If you're an ambassador of Hashem, so then on one hand you're completely humble, and on the other hand you're the most powerful person. Why are you completely humble? Because I don't have to be right. I don't have to be confrontational. I'm very humble. I'm open. On the other hand, you're very powerful because you're a conduit for infinity. So you're not a pushover, you're not a shmata. It's more on the contrary. You're much more confident, but your confidence is not coming from fakeness, from gaiva, from arrogance. On the contrary, Sitra Achera creates its own yeshus. It creates its own mitzias. I have to, if I'm not experiencing that I'm a conduit from Hashem, I want to live. So I create my own little bubble, and that's where I live in. The problem is the bubble doesn't really exist. So every day I have to recreate that bubble in different ways. But it's very easy. You take a needle, and you rupture the balloon, and boom. That's scary. It's scary to be a balloon. One little needle, boom. Right? So now this person is arguing with me, you're a needle, and I'm a balloon. So what am I supposed to do? I have to kill you. Makes sense. Huh? I'm saying there's a needle that can threaten the balloon. So ungeblasen in Yiddish, the expression ungeblasen balgaiva. Yeah, what's ungeblasen? Ungeblasen means, you know what ungeblasen means? Huh? Blowing up. It's blowing up. That's what yeshus is. There's the parentheses here, but I want to go after the parentheses. It's like the parentheses goes for like 7 lines. The line starts Vida. V'zeu sibus hapirud v'Heichaltzu. And this is the reason why there's separation and there's fragmentation. Because again, 2 things. Number 1, if I'm not connected to Ein Sof, so then differences of opinion and paradoxes are threatening. They undermine me. And number 2, if I'm not connected to Ein Sof, I'm in a very insecure position. And therefore, I'm in a very fearful space. So division becomes very natural because it's the way of me coping. It's very hard for me to be all-encompassing because my existence is a very, very threatened existence. And whenever somebody, it's like we spoke in the 3rd class, when somebody operates on a level of trauma, whatever that means, it could be on a million different levels. But when I'm operating from that space, my tools are extremely, extremely limited. And I'm in a survival mode. And when I'm in a survival mode, division is a very natural thing because my existence is undermined so easily. I separate within myself and I separate with others. Relationships become the most threatening thing. Isolation is survival. That's what it is. Anybody knows what that means? Isolation is survival. You ever feel like that? You don't trust anybody. You go into your corner and you're safe. And you lock the door, la'olam v'ad. But everyone wants a relationship, so you're going to allow a little bit. The person gets too close. Out. Text, maybe a text. A person once told me something very sad. I was actually very impressed with his awareness. I felt close to him, and I saw one day that he was very upset at me, and I didn't know why. So I said, "Why are you so upset at me?" So he said like this. Listen to this. It taught me so much. He said as follows. He said, somebody who loves me is one of 2 things. Either he's stupid or he's a lowlife, he's a liar, because I am damaged. So if you love me, either you're stupid, or you're trying to steal from me, you're trying to undermine me. I don't think you're stupid. That means you're evil. So you understand? You understand? But the awareness is very powerful. You know, I'm damaged. I'm damaged. So if you love me, you're certainly damaged. You don't go to the store and buy the most damaged computer, right? You don't do that. I mean, unless it's for sale and whatever. You could pay $2 and refurbish it. But it's not what you do. You don't go to buy why are you buying a damaged computer? That was his mashal. Some people do. Yeah, yeah. So either you don't realize it's damaged, so you're stupid, or you could make money off me. I'm just bringing out one example of how isolation works. So therefore, if I stay away. Of course I stay away. I can't be open. It's too dangerous. And there's a reason. When this person was a kid, he was backstabbed and front stabbed 100 times emotionally. So you want him to open his chest again? So give me another stab. So isolation is the right place. And that's what pirud is. So where's this pirud coming from? It's coming from not recognizing that I'm infinite, not recognizing that I'm part of Hashem. In other words, thinking that I'm really crushed, isolated, shmata, worse than an insect. Even an insect, you know, the bugs that go around, they have more self-esteem.
And the person is right, because he lives in an environment where
Exactly. That's why That's why you cannot learn these things with judgment. This is not judgment. It's an X-ray. It's not judgment. I know why the person is that way. When he was 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, instead of being told that he's a chelik elakami mal mamash, he was told that he has no right to exist. He was molested. So he was told, I don't exist. That's what he was told in the formative years, and that's what he believes today. The only way he could exist is if he pleases people. He's not allowed to be. So the moment you want to get into his life and be connected to him, he's going to shut you down. Because you're connecting to something that has to be in hiding, that has to be embarrassed. Either you're stupid or you're even more evil. And that he can't afford that. And then we create mechanisms to protect that. Anybody relates to what I'm talking about?
Did you answer to him?
Huh?
What did you answer to him?
What I answered him? What do you think? What do you think I answered him? I'm still answering him. I hope he's listening. I'm still answering him. I'm always answering him. And I'm answering myself. So there's two levels of isolation. There's isolation where I'm suffering from the isolation. And there's isolation that's so bad that I turn my isolation into Mashiach. And then it's worse. The Baal Shem Tov said, V'anoichi haster aster. So the Toldos Yaakov Yosef says, the Baal Shem Tov said, V'anoichi haster aster. The hester is oich behester. The concealment is also concealed. And then it's much worse. If I know that it's dark outside, I'm saying, oh, it's dark, you got to be careful. But if the darkness becomes light and a substitute for light, then I don't even know it's dark. So it's more sad. In other words, my isolation becomes a shittas achayim. It becomes you understand? It becomes a philosophy in life. I have to develop a philosophy around it. I want to feel good about myself. I don't want to feel. A person wants to feel good about themselves, and that's a good thing. A person should feel good about themselves. Ani amarti Elokim atem ubnei Elyon kulchem. Why shouldn't you feel good about yourself? Achein kadem temusin. In other words, ani amarti Elokim atem. A person should feel good about themselves. B'chira nevraim ivdu as Hashem b'simcha b'oy lefonav birnono. Du'uki Hashem Elokim hu asanu v'lo yanachnu amay v'tzay marisa. We say every morning, Mizmor l'Seidah. David HaMelech said, I have to serve how a person should live. If not, so I create philosophies and ideas and shittas around it. Yeah? And if I'm a Talmud Chacham Nachaych, so I find sources. And now I have a bunch of sources why I'm isolated. And again, so now I have God's stamp too. Right? So my trauma is with a hechsher. Badatz. I have a hechsher, it's gewaldig, it's holy, it's sacred. and this. The person is in a difficult state. So all this is pshat. I'm in a place of sitrach. What's that sitrach? Sitrach means not with judgment, but that the person is not experiencing themselves as a flow of divine infinity. Of course, I have to be isolated. Life is very threatening. I don't have that confidence. I have to go back and tell the child inside of me, you are not a victim. You are not a shmata. You're a chelik elikami mal mamish, and you should emerge, and you're entitled to real relationships. But it's not a speech because it's pre-verbal. It hurt. Let's just learn another few lines here. So Midian is this strife, which represents hatred, sinas chinam, baseless hatred. And we said, what's pshat baseless hatred? It could be a situation, the person did not do me evil. Nor did he touch anything that's mine. It's not like he stole my job, or you stole my house, or damaged something, or usurped something from me. Sometimes he didn't take something, he took us half a thing. He didn't take a half a thing either. Sometimes a person didn't do anything, but you feel that he's scheming against you, you know. You have it in for me. You have an in for me, right? Something about me, you're scheming. Chayr shra means you're planning. Mezimot. No. But the fact is that he can't tolerate him. It's hard for him to talk to him. It's hard for him to connect, to mix with him. Even it comes to something holy. So connect to him. I can't. What's the reason? I live in a space where I can't really create space for somebody else. Mitzad my yeshes, the frailty of my existence, which becomes very yesh, it becomes, I'm a kosher keres, right? I cannot really create space for somebody in a true way. I become like very narcissistic in a different way. So I become your opposer. It's not even personal, because he said it's my issue, it's my trauma, it's my own pain, it's my own yeshes. Your existence drives me crazy. Because as long as you exist, somehow my existence is diminished. What is that? If you exist in your full glory, it takes away something from me, but it's not. But it is. Huh? When Mordechai wasn't bowing. Right. Okay, we'll soon see about the Midian itself. That has to do with zima, with addiction. I certainly can't connect to him in a positive way. Sometimes I don't connect to somebody. But here, it's not only... There's also a negative, this negative energy. Certainly, unfortunately, he says, we see this in the last generations, in so many places where Jews live, in all the places where they live. In every inyan, there's another machlokes. So, anything that's communal, there has to be strife. Especially when it comes to holiness, over there, mamish, nobody can get along. This is Tafresh Nun Tes, 1898. It comes to Rabbanim, it comes to Shachtim, it comes to running shuls. It comes to holy things, suddenly, the worst, the lowest angels come out. I once heard from Rabbi Sachs, Olav Shalom, the British chief rabbi. He says that Yaakov woke up from the dream, and he says, Ein Zakim Beis Elokim. This is a house of God. This is how did he know? So he says, because the Medrash says that the rocks were fighting with each other. So he said, a place that even the rocks get into a fight, Ein Zakim Beis Elokim. This has to be a shul. It's a Beis Elokim. Even the rocks have to fight. People can't connect. If somebody says one thing, the other person feels he has to say the opposite. Umash is a boina ze maharis. Person builds and another person demolishes. V'achilukei deyes be'emes ein pirud levava. So you could say, no, I have a different opinion. I'm allowed to have a different opinion. You think it's a building, and I'm telling you, you're demolishing the community. You're allowed to have, we said you're allowed to have different opinions. He says, Mela, different opinions. It's really pirud halavavas. It's that the hearts are fragmented. The masha oime behepich mizulose ein zemit such a sichle mechayev kein. Ki im oime masha uroitze v'lam oime tzarech l'chasechel. The rationale comes later. The reason I'm disagreeing with you is not that I genuinely have a different way of looking at it, so I tell you my opinion. Then it wouldn't end up in strife. No, I'm saying what I want. The seichel comes after. I find reasons, explanation. The question is, why do I want to say different? You want this, so something gets triggered in me that I have to say the opposite. What is that about? He says you have to look deep inside. What type of existence do you have inside? The cheshbon hanefesh, you're not going to find it in the other person. He would have said black, you have said white. He said white. In other words, there's something inside of me. What is it? Something that's not at peace in me. The anger, the jealousy, lack of contentment, lack of simcha, lack of self-acceptance, lack of self-love, lack of real understanding of who I am. I'm in a place of yeshus instead of a place of bittul. That's the principle. The underlying principle is, you want this, of course I have to want the opposite. I don't even have a choice. Of course I have to disagree with you. So it's not different ideas. You have different people, have different svaras, yeah, in halacha and gemara. There's no savlanut. I can't really tolerate you and appreciate you. He says, besides that, there's a big damage. Because that which has to be accomplished gets ruined. And nobody looks at that point. In other words, something has to be built. And all that is getting destroyed. But they're not looking at it because I'm more focused on how am I going to come out of this? What's going to be my position? So, see, it's a communal issue. People need something, right? Children need something. This one needs something. But instead of looking at that, I'm so busy with my own insecurities that I can't even look at that. So he says, so besides the fact that it's painful, the separation, what has to be accomplished is not accomplished because, you're pulling it from this side and I'm pulling it from this side. Okay, we'll take a break here, and Be'ezer Hashem will continue Thursday morning, 7:45. Thursday morning. 9:30 will be the women's class right here. Everybody have a beautiful and wonderful day. It's not conditional. That's what bittul means. Yeah, of course. So it's the Gesayt von ganz Chassidus. Avedas cannot extinguish the truth of the person. If I care, the reason I do Avedas is usually because I don't know about this truth. You know what I mean? It's like if I have $10 million in the bank, but I don't know about it, so I'm stealing. Oh. I'm stealing. Why am I stealing? I don't know I have $10 million in the bank. If I would know I have $10 million in the bank, I don't have to steal. I think I have 5 cents in the bank. You understand what I'm saying? The reason most people do Avedas is because they don't know who they are. You don't lose. It's just, unfortunately, that I'm living like a pauper who has to steal and run away from the police. You know the story of the guy on the train? Huh? So the guy on the train, he was a wealthy man. He bought his first class ticket. And he sits down on the train, and then, the police would come to inspect the tickets in Europe. And he sees everybody's hiding under the chairs. So he also goes hiding under the chair. So he's talking to the guys. He says, why are you hiding? He says, well, none of us buy tickets. So he says, oh, I have a ticket. So he shows him, he says, you have a first class ticket, Shoita. What are you hiding under the chairs? So it doesn't take away that he has a ticket. Just the person is not living in that space.
What happens if somebody did something?
Well, the Rebbe says in Likutei Torah in Rosh Hashanah, we once learned that even Kodesh, when it says, you remember, v'nichris hanefesh, he says it's only the pchin of Yaakov. Yisrael is never cut off. Even Kodesh.
that's what caused him to lose his job.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, listen.
that's not a spin anymore.
No, if somebody stole $100,000 from me, and I want the money back, that's not sinas chinam. If somebody broke my glasses, yeah, or somebody destroyed my car, and I want them to pay for it, that's not sinas chinam. I mean, I could be moichel, but that's not sinas chinam.
How do you do?
The Ramban, Kedoshim, the Ramban on the pasuk lo sikem v'lo sitter. Don't take revenge. He says, don't confuse this with somebody taking somebody to court because they owe them money. That's not revenge. I'm not mechuyev to lose my money. You could be Michael if you want, but that's not sinas chinam. That's not sinas chinam. It's not even. No. I want to thank Reb Nuchem Fried for this whole technology.
Don't raise your hand.
I usually don't have a chance. I don't have a chance. So.
Am I in here?
Hey, Reb Chaim Monsey, yeah. The Rav from Vilna. Tovshin, 1940. Reb Chaim Monsey Gradzensky. The Rav from Vilna. Well, he founded it with Reb Chaim Brisker. He founded the Aguda.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.